the thing is, I'm starting recording, but we will cut. Don't worry this. But consider is you get. I think in general, let me see. I think last time I checked, the good thing is being on YouTube. People might in a week's time access. Need to find, but we are talking about hundreds.
Oh well, nice.
Consider we try to advertise. So I'm just looking now. There are some people, they reach. Some they are the worst. I'm checking now. We are talking about 60, and then between I would say 60 to 200. Even more. It depends also. I think the most popular is because people were already popular on social media. So when they advertise on their own LinkedIn, which we do, they have already, let's say, a group of followers.
Yeah.
So
nice.
I think the good thing is, the video will be there. We will put on the website. So there might be few views at the beginning, but people keep looking sometimes. Also because what happened is, for example, after you, there will be another person.
Yeah.
And maybe someone say, let's see the other previous interview.
Yeah. Exactly. Just grows over time.
I think where we need to be from our side is to be consistent. We are trying to make it. I was thinking initially weekly, but at least monthly. That's the.
Yeah, because weekly is quite a lot, isn't it? That's very often.
We need to create a sort of people know that every month there will be something.
Yeah, a rota, something regular. Yeah.
So let me be serious now. So so thanks, Jessica. So thanks for accepting our invitation. So Jessica Payne, you are Earth observation scientist at Natural England. If you, I will start as usual. What do you do? What's your day-to-day job? And then we can start from there.
Sounds great. So my day-to-day job is, as you said, Earth observation scientist at Natural England. And I'm based in the Earth Observation Service. They call it EOS. And we deal with essentially lots of small projects during the year for which Natural England want to use Earth observation data. So that might be drone imagery, that might be satellite imagery, might be aerial imagery, so from planes, to basically assess the state of nature in England. So, for example, one of the projects I've been working on recently, we went down to Norfolk and conducted a drone survey along 10-kilometre stretch of the beach to assess the population of seals there. So it's about 8,000 seals there, and we go around down each December to count the number of pups, the number of adults on that beach. So we can do things on the ecological end, like that project, or we do things like another project I'm working on at the moment is using satellite SAR data, mainly Sentinel-1, to assess how fast landslides are moving in special sites of scientific interest in England. So some of these SSIs, we call them, they're protected scientifically because they've got interesting landslides in them. So maybe they're some of the shallowest landslides in England, or perhaps they're really large and particularly interesting scientifically. So we sort of cover all ends of sort of interesting nature, from ecology over to geology, and we just use Earth observation to analyse and inform other groups in Natural England about them.
Is the use of Earth observation is a recent things within Natural England, or
so so I think the team I'm in has been around for about 10 years. So doing that sort of scale of projects, lots of drone work and things like that. And in other parts of Natural England, there's been more sort of long multi-year projects going on for about, I want to say about 5 years. For example, Living England is one that many might have heard of. So that's a England scale habitat map, which takes in Earth observation data and produces a 10-metre scale habitat map for the whole of England. And that's been going on, as I say, multi-year, rather than these smaller projects I described before. And that's part of the government's natural capital, or NCEA, I can't remember, Natural Capital Ecosystem Assessment, something like that. Okay. And so that's a big government program. But sort of 10 to 5 years, things started like really growing.
And just for the viewers, before talking about you, just if you can give even a general description of Natural England, what they do.
Of course. Yeah.
the
So
mission. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So some people describe Natural England as England's sort of agent for biodiversity. So that means we're the part of the government funded by mainly DEFRA, so they are the Department for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. And DEFRA are sort of responsible for all those things I mentioned, environment, food, rural affairs, but Natural England specifically, we're responsible for looking after nature. Is it recovering? Is it in a good state? And can it be improved or protected? So that's basically Natural England's remit.
Thanks. And okay, so now let's go more to dig about you. What's your day-to-day job? Yeah, within the organization.
Yeah.
Such a
So
big organization, I presume.
yeah. So yeah, there's about 3,000 people in Natural England. So everyone's got quite different roles, but mine specifically is basically analysis. So I take satellite data, be it, as I mentioned, from all different sensors, and conduct sort of the initial analysis of that data. And it varies as to who in Natural England wants the output from the specific project. So people just might want a visual assessment of change over time, for example. Some people might want a more quantitative analysis of time series of some imagery. So things I might use for that might be, for example, your traditional GIS softwares, ArcGIS, QGIS, or more command-based programming in Python and things like that. As well as that, sort of doing the analysis myself, a lot of Natural England's work sometimes comes down to contractors doing the work. So something I picked up recently is managing contractors doing analysis for us. So as well as doing the analysis ourselves, we oversee sort of procurement and contracting and ensuring sort of external partners are doing good job for us as
Would
well.
you so there is both the, let's say, the network, Python,
Yeah.
coding, JS, and also the bureaucracy bit. Did
Okay.
you expect this? Also, you will end up doing also this procurement side of things. Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think I realised the full extent of how much procurement goes on in Natural England and government bodies. It's quite interesting to see from the inside and sort of the reasoning behind it, because obviously you've got lots of really highly skilled scientists in Natural England, and you think this work could be done internally, but I think it's a bit surprising, I think, that there's so much procurement happening.
And about this more bureaucracy management side of things, it's something you learn on the job, or it's okay?
Yeah, I think on the job, there is quite a lot of training you can do. As a government body, like government set up, like contract management training, essentially. Yeah, a lot of it's just through experience.
Okay. And now let's go back in time. So when did you start Natural England, and how did you end up there?
So I started at Natural England last July, whilst I was finishing off a PhD in sort of earth sciences and earth observation at the University of Leeds, which I've just finished the corrections of my thesis, actually. So I was at Leeds, I started there in 2021. So I was there just over 4 years, and I was doing a PhD in using satellite SAR data, basically just Sentinel-1 data. Another data, but I'll come to that, to estimate where subsidence is across Iran and how it's changed over time in rate and extent. I also used to validate the you measure in the end a velocity, so how fast the ground is moving over time in 106 subsidence regions across the country. And I tried as well to validate these rates with satellite topographic data, so ISAT-2. And I also made digital elevation models of the surface using more commercial stereo photos from aerial imagery, satellite optical imagery. And so differencing those satellite topographic data sets, you can get an estimate of the subsidence magnitude over time, and you can compare that to what you get from INSAR from Sentinel-1. So it's quite like multi-sensor work I was doing at my PhD as well.
Did you expect from going from subsidence in Iran to ecosystem in England?
Yeah, no, it's quite a different application, I guess, in the end. But I think from working in, Iran being the subject of my PhD, it's somewhere that you can't really go as a scientist working in the UK. And I think doing my work, you felt quite detached from the country you're thinking so much about. So it makes such a difference being able to sort of see just day to day what you're working on, interact with the people who are concerned with, for example, seals in Norfolk, speaking to them, speaking to the public. So yeah, I think it's been nice for me, and something I wanted was to work somewhere where I could visit and sort of work with communities as well.
And you say, okay, you have been working with INSA during your PhD. What about before that? Have you had, I'm asking this because, for example, in Italy, there is no, at least at the time I studied, which is not a long time ago, but did you have during your master or bachelor education, did you have any training on specifically or INSA or Earth observation in general?
No, not really. So I did, I did quite a broad degree initially called Natural Sciences, where you can basically just pick any science subject you want at the start, and then you specialize over the 4 years.
In Leeds or?
No, it was at Cambridge.
Okay.
So I started doing, at the beginning, I thought I wanted to do biology, for example. So I did all biology-based sorts of things. And then, so you do 4 things, and one of them was earth sciences because you had to pick 4. And then as I went through, I sort of decided, I quite like earth sciences. I quite like the field work. It's an interesting application topic. And then we only covered INSAR remote sensing perhaps for like 1 or 2 lectures. My 3rd or 4th year and say, oh, look, this is INSAR, you can measure. Because there were lots of lecturers there who study earthquakes using seismology and field data. They mentioned, and INSAR can also measure earthquakes. And that was it, really. Yeah, I think, is that the extent of it? Yeah, I think so. And then there was the odd guest lecture. I remember one in particular, it was by some academics down in Bristol, and they showed their work. This was probably back maybe like 2019, 2020. No, probably 2018 actually. They said, we can use INSAR to measure volcanoes inflating. I was like, that's incredible. That's the best thing ever. Because I'm so used to like going in the field and just measuring, I don't know, strike and dip of a fault or something like that. Yeah. And then they said, and then we can use machine learning to automatically detect when these volcanoes are inflating. I thought, well, that's very cool. So I think that's where I got this sort of idea or interest in remote sensing, like the power of scale. Huh?
The nerdy side.
No, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's the extent. But yeah, we didn't really study it. No, as you say, it's similar to Italy, it sounds like.
Okay. Yeah, I think, but I mean, it's good that somehow this person inspired you.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's quite nice. Yeah.
You can say the name.
Yeah, I think it was Juliet Biggs. I was just trying to remember, but I think I can't remember. It was that research group down in Bristol, and they were quite ahead of the curve, I guess, in using machine learning and AI and earth sciences. Because yeah, this was sort of 8 years ago now. Everyone's using it these days, but at the time it was just so it's fascinating. Yeah.
And how much of the study you've been doing through your PhD on INSA is then all skills you acquired has been useful now, are now useful for your work?
Yeah, really useful. So the job I applied for was actually basically just to do mainly use INSAR and radar skills for projects, because they don't, before I joined, there was nobody who really had worked on INSAR or radar satellite data. So they're really looking for someone who had that expertise. And I probably won't be doing things at the same scale of that Iran scale over 10 years, but I have the knowledge they need to apply and sort of sound check various projects they're doing in Natural England. As well, as I mentioned, I've worked with satellite LiDAR, and they work a lot with LiDAR data sets in Natural England as well. So yeah, I'm using quite a lot of the skills from my PhD already, which is great.
Everything across Earth observation.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's something I don't know if you expected to do. If you think about yourself, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Or what, working in this role now?
Yeah, because you say biology. So
yeah.
So what you were hoping to do?
That's a good question. So when I started my degree, I guess I really was interested in like animal and plant evolution. And I love watching like David Attenborough on the telly and documentaries like that. So I guess something like that would have been really interesting, but I was quite open-minded. So perhaps coming back to Natural England with a focus on ecosystems, as you say, and ecology, sort of bring that interest back into sort of the remote sensing skills I've learned from my PhD. So yeah, it's definitely a role I could see myself being interested in back then, but I guess working out how to get to where I am now, I would have no idea. I've just sort of stumbled into being able to do the right skills for the right job. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So even I don't know, you applied, I don't know, by chance, or someone referred you that position, or I don't know how you, yeah, you apply, you end up applying to it.
What, for this job now?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, so I was looking for jobs. Yeah, about it would have been March last year, and this, and because I was sort of meant to finish my PhD about September, I was like, I'll just keep an eye out. And this one came up, and they were specifically asking for, yeah, someone who had remote INSAR experience, LiDAR experience, and it was in natural England, and it was sort of an application area I'd be interested in. So I just like took the chance and went for it, even though I wasn't quite finished my PhD.
Okay.
So just keeping an eye out really on adverts. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's and somehow it's still connected to biology and
Yeah, yeah,
ecology. So
exactly, and
somehow,
geology as well. Somehow it works
yeah,
out.
better than this, I think. Yeah, there is you, there is nothing probably. And in terms of, because yeah, you mentioned you're part of DEFRA, so the UK
Mhm.
government. If you can tell us, because I think one of the nice things of working there is also you can see real impact of the work you do,
Yeah.
informing government, local authorities. So I don't know if you want to say something more, give an example
Mhm.
of how your science is used by policymaker or.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I guess some of the things which people might have seen recently are in the news, I think, around people building on, so for example, special sites of scientific interest, those triple SIs I mentioned before.
Mm.
And sometimes people build on these sites with either just with sort of without knowing that they're protected or designated, things like that. And some of the work we do in our team is sort of trying to find proactively or historically where people have been building or changing land use in these protected sites. And
Okay.
there's been some, yeah, news recently about particular cases where, for example, caravan parks have been extended into triple SIs, and the teams in Natural England have sort of used evidence from our team provided from satellite imagery to support
Okay.
cases such as that. So yeah, that's one quite nice example that our team works on.
Okay. And do you, I don't know, is there, most of your job will be probably focused on England, but is there, I don't know, also as a part of your role working possibility to work with colleagues from other parts of the world, probably corresponding environment agency abroad, and how much time do you have now for research?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at the moment, because I've only been here since July, I guess I haven't had the full experience of what it's like in the team. But yeah, as you say, most of our focus is on working with other sort of England-based agencies rather than those abroad. So yeah, I mean, we met with you, for example, at BGS to discuss where we overlap and things like that. For example, what as the work I mentioned before on sort of monitoring geology and deformation and sites of scientific interest, that's like quite relevant to lots of agencies, not just those in DEFRA. But yeah, oh sorry, what was the second part of the question? I forgot.
The possibility to do research. How much
Yeah,
space you have?
possibility research. Yeah, so this, yeah, I think it's difficult. It depends on your definition of research. So
Early.
like, yeah, no, but
Or
also,
testing new approach.
yeah, I think
As a,
like research, academic research and what
yeah.
sort of government agencies would call research and development are quite different. So obviously with academic research, you're sort of pushing boundaries of all knowledge, whereas sort of in Natural England, it seems, or other government agencies are sort of pushing what Natural England can do and researching and developing expertise in the agency. And so there's
Okay.
projects which are specifically aimed at like developing methods, developing new ways of working in the organization, which apply sort of not really cutting edge, but like quite cutting edge
Okay.
skills from or findings in academia. So there is some capacity, but yeah, you've maybe sort of, I don't know, 20% of your time might be on that kind of research and development work. Yeah.
But still,
It's quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. This is now a personal question because I always wonder. So, how much relationship do you have? What type of relationship there is with the other natural England in Wales, Scotland? How do you work
Yeah.
together? There might be sites where they are cross country.
Yeah, that's as in protected sites which cross boundaries.
Yeah. I don't know. It might be there is nothing, but just wondering.
I'm
Yeah,
not
the
sure.
relationship.
Yeah, so there's Nature Scot, I know, and I don't know the agency in Wales actually, but there's another agency called JNCC, so the Joint Nature Committee. I can't remember what the other C stands for, but they oversee nature in all countries, so not just England, but Scotland and Wales, and they produce quite a lot of I think it's UK-wide data sets for all three sort of like Natural England, Nature Scot, those agencies. And we work with them a lot. They've got quite a good environment, Earth observation capacity within JNCC. So we sort of use their data sets, might consult with them on what's going on in our team, what's going on in their team, see if there's any overlap. And for example, there's the Earth Observation Centre of Excellence, which I think is run from DEFRA. That might need to be checked, but it brings together sort of EO expertise from, for example, Natural England, I know DEFRA as well, and probably GNCC and other, I think, DEFRA-based bodies sort of discuss overlapping projects and knowledge. So that will sort of make more efficient sort of work being done across bodies because it can overlap. So there's some sort of official join up in that capacity.
I've also two questions. One very specific because I was reading through the news during these days. How much work, if you do any, on, for example, illegal dumping site across the country? That's well, my first.
Yeah. So as mentioned before, so we're trying to sort of see where people are building or changing land use in special sites of scientific interest, and that's sort of verging on illegal activity because it's doing something you're not meant to do in a protected site, and sometimes that can involve illegal dumping. So and sometimes it depends really on sort of what. So there's teams in Natural England who deal with that sort of damage to protected sites, and they might come to us and ask for evidence. Can we see any evidence from, for example, satellite data or aerial photography? So that's something we have capacity to do.
Okay. And the other is more about disaster response. So just making example, floods probably because it's the most common hazard here. Let's say there is a big storm, huge impact. Is somehow, I mean, for sure, the Environment Agency would be the first organization be involved. But is there also coordination with you? Because some of this might impact protected site or if you can tell us more.
So I think one of my colleagues works on flood mapping, and we use usually Sentinel-1 backscatter to map flood extent and things like that. I know she is at the moment trying to work on sort of change over time and extents as well in one particular site. But in terms of sort of like an immediate response, that's more a sort of a historical case. So maybe like 2 or 3 years ago there was a flood, and they're sort of looking at flood extents. But in terms of flood response, I don't know exactly how we're involved, but I know we do some flood mapping, as I say. But I think obviously Environment Agency deals with like the flooding of houses and society and people, and obviously that's the priority in a flood response. So I don't know if Natural England comes in later then sort of to assess the impact on nature in a more sort of less responsive way.
Another question now, it's more about the relationship you have with other research and academia organizations. So you say you manage, for example, auto procurement, which probably might entail both scientific organization, company, industry. So how much collaboration there is with academia? And because you say also sometimes you try to use state-of-the-art tools in your own work. So
yeah, definitely. So there's quite especially in sort of the scientific area of Natural England, there's quite a lot of collaboration with academic groups. So, for example, I'm supporting or helping supervise a PhD student because their case partnership is with Natural England. So that I think is quite common. I think Natural England do as well support PhDs in a sort of stronger capacity. As well, like Natural England can be involved in sort of like grant calls. So, for example, I think there's a NERC AI and the environment call at the minute, and so we can work with universities on and be named on those sort of grant applications and work with them if they are successful. But sort of aside from that, like pure academic side of things, then yes, so some academic groups are actually procured by Natural England to work on sort of more business as usual projects as well. One example, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was to do with sort of biodiversity assessments and things like that outside of our team, not in Earth observation. But yeah, there's quite a lot of overlap between like academic groups and Natural England, yeah.
And if you think now, or according to your expertise, what do you think would be the highest challenge for Natural England in the future? I'm just, for example, maybe there is too many satellite data to manage, or it might be also actual hazard problem. I don't know, wildfire. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think one of the big problems I think at the minute is sort of managing data storage and analysis on resource which is quite limited, because obviously we're a government body, we can't just go out and buy massive servers and store loads of data on it in an efficient way. So we have to be quite cautious about the data we process, where we store it. It has to be secure and complying to sort of DEFRA and other government sort of rules about security and things like that. That is quite a big challenge. I think things don't move fast, so it's quite hard to keep up with, for example, emerging AI technologies, emerging big data processing techniques when we're so limited in how fast we can upgrade our systems. So I think that's one of the big challenges Natural England face, particularly in relation to Earth observation. As well, I think another challenge for Natural England in general is sort of persuading both the public, society and government that Natural England plays a really important role at the moment in protecting nature, and that needs to keep going. It can't like stop at the expense of other things, because nature is so important to people's well-being and biodiversity and like the state of the country. Like persuading, as I say, societies and government that protecting nature is important, I think is quite a big challenge at the moment in the like political climate.
And I remember also last time we spoke in person, you told me, Natural England is also about, it's not just the nature, but it's also the people.
Yeah, exactly.
The impacts so if you can give us, just a real example of that.
Yeah, so one example that springs to mind is there's a team sort of adjacent to mine who, they're sort of a statistics team, and they run the People in Nature survey each year. And that survey goes out to, it's both for adults and also there's a children version, and it sort of assesses how often people go out into nature, how they perceive nature, how they benefit from nature. And I mean, you can go and look at results, or I think take part yourself if you're interested. That's like quite a important study of how people engage with nature and what kinds of people might be challenged in sort of accessing nature and those who are not. And that informs, I guess, a lot of evidence for policy and developing green spaces.
And if you have already some feedback from these results, have you seen already what's the priority for people from this survey? Or
no, not
otherwise we will let people check. We'll put the link.
People should definitely check, but I think the results are always positive. I think people who have access to green space, for example, feel sort of more positive and things like that. I think that's a general gist, but off the top of my head, I can't really remember the big headlines. But yeah, it's quite an interesting delving into the results, because there's sort of they ask quite a lot of questions and sort of make links between people who answer, say, for example, they struggle with mental health, and those who get into good green spaces. Often, as you might expect, there's sort of a correlation, I think, between those who access green space more and those who have positive mental health. So it's quite an interesting report to check out, definitely.
Yeah, we will try to put a link at the bottom of the video. one question. I'm conscious of time, so I'll try to.
No, it's fine.
Good. But how much? Because we are trying with this post also to talk to early career research undergraduates. So for your position in particular, how much of your job is dependent of coding skill, GIS, or any other ability skills? So that people have an idea of what does it mean education and how you can then build a nice resume out of it.
So I think there's a lot of use of sort of GIS in natural England. So people use a lot ArcGIS Pro, for example. I didn't use that much in my PhD, for example, but I use QGIS, which basically the same, but one's like more commercial, ArcGIS Pro. So I think, building on GIS skills is really valuable if you would like to sort of go into this sort of career, particularly as like I've got quite a lot of command line based experience with Python and sort of bash scripting, but like skills really vary within a team, in a technical team, and sort of something like Natural England. So being able to sort of work on both like sort of nitty gritty Python based scripting and also sort of the GUI interface of a GIS program is quite important. But yeah, we're sort of working towards more Python scripting as well, and sort of working with not just like one image, but more big data processing. I think having Python skills is a real, I in my PhD just use Python all the time really, and having like quite solid Python skills is a real advantage, I think, for quick processing and learning on the job. So because like, for example, DEFRA might bring in a new system and it's Python based, and then people who haven't used Python before have to spend a lot of time learning how to use that interface. But if you already have those skills to bring to the job, you then sort of don't have to spend that time training on the job. So it's quite a big advantage. Yeah.
And is that something you say, of course, on the job training, but how much helped you the university pathway you had?
Oh, as in how much training did the university provide?
At least for your experience.
So I was quite lucky. I think I was on the Centre for Doctoral Training, and they had a lot of training as part of that training program, so CDT. So for example, we had a month in Edinburgh, which was just based on training. We had a week on.
A month?
Yeah, and then we had another month in Leeds in the first year. So there was a lot of training going on. And that training, so it was, learning Python coding, because I didn't do any Python coding before my PhD, so it's quite very steep learning curve. So yeah, a week on Python, a week on sort of Google Earth Engine, a week on using GitHub, like all sort of the basics you need. And then aside from skills, we learned sort of the applications of Earth observation in different fields. So like geohazards and sort of ice-based applications of Earth observation, atmospheric sciences. So I was quite lucky in that my training was like quite foundational and also broad at the same time.
Okay. So Jess, I think unless there are any specific things you want to say, I think with that, I think we can conclude the interview. And thanks again for being with us. And I will make sure we will have all the links to the reference you gave us today.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks.
I will stop recording now. Let me find it.
Nice.
So stop recording.